Please like our videos, share them with your friends, and lastly, subscribe to our channel. John Dailey is a former member of the proof of concept MARSOC Detachment 1. He was hand-selected to create the Marine Raider Sniper program. Prior to Det-1, John served with the 3rd Battalion, 7th Marines, Surveillance and Target Acquisition Platoon, and 1st Recon Battalion. He is also the author of the book Tough, Rugged Bastards. All right, welcome to Silencio Coffee. Today, I'm here with my buddy Fred, and we've got a great guest, John Dailey. John was on my other podcast, We Fight Monsters, but I wanted him on so he could get the exposure that he deserves. He's done quite a bit. He's written the book Tough, Rugged Bastards, which you should check out. This is really a book that tells about his story of that creation and the training that, you know, led up to well, basically a pilot program that led up to the creation of MARSOC, the Raiders. And there's a storied history, those guys from World War II and beyond, and then where are they now? So I'm going to have John bring us up to speed with his career, where he's at, what he's doing, and just, you know, go back and forth. Fred's going to have some questions. So I'll start off the show with just saying, what's up, Fred? How are you, man?
Hey, Mike, I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Doing good, brother. John, thanks for coming on.
Hey, I'm glad to be here, guys.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, man. I really liked our conversation from last time. I liked the fact that, number one, I like writers. I like any veteran who's a writer who actually has a memoir, and I feel that they tell it honestly without embellishment. And I got the sense, because I think a lot of times you see a lot of vets, they want to sell books, and I get it. I understand it. But I think that history should be preserved, and some stories should be told. And if they're told, they should be told in such a way as to honor those who are not coming back, and to honor the work that good people did. Whether people want to argue about the GWAT or not, I don't care. That's not what the show is about, but really about you. I mean, this is why you're on. So where are you at right now since you last wrote the book? How's that working for you?
It's going well. It's been out now, I guess, 6-7 months, and continues to sell and do well. You know, been on a lot of podcasts, which has been good. You know, it's gotten some exposure, and my full-time job is I still work at MARSOC training Raiders, which is, you know, a phenomenal opportunity. I love to do it. I'm happy to, not every day, almost every day, to show up at work and have the opportunity to be around, you know, hard charging, Marines. In addition to that, I write a couple of weekly newsletters that go out. One just largely about how translating military experience into making yourself better, and the other called Ruck the Fuck Up, which is more about rucking. Rucking is mental toughness development, and rucking is physical fitness development. That's kind of led into what I've been getting into lately, more speaking engagements, talking about some of these things with people, which I enjoy. So it's keeps me busy, that's for sure.
Yeah. So what's it like now that you wrote the book and you've had some time to process it? I mean, have you had some new thoughts that you said, well, I wish I had put it in the book, or I'm glad I didn't put it in the book?
Yeah, I was just with a couple of friends last night. We were having a couple beers, and guys who are in the book, and talking with them, and one of the things, and you guys kind of mentioned it before, when you write a book, you have a responsibility, as a writer, to one, hopefully tell the truth, right? But you can tell the truth and still, not tell the truth, right? You can not say anything that didn't happen, but you can leave out lots of things that did happen. So that's what a lot of, or not a lot, but some veterans, writers, tend to do. Play
there's a lot.
Yeah, I guess. But I didn't want any of the guys that I served with to come back and say, man, you either you said something that wasn't accurate, or you presented things in a way that either made yourself look better than you probably should have. So so far, I've had pretty good feedback from the guys who were there, which is really important to me, and probably more important to me than anything else. Than the book doing well or whatever, is honoring the kind of the service and sacrifice of those guys that I got to serve with. talking with them, there's been a million people that have, man, why didn't you talk about this? Why didn't you tell this story? And they're like, man, it could have been a 1,000-page book, and I didn't have the patience for that. So we stuck at about 270 pages and had to leave some things out.
Yeah, but a book like that is a good light read. It's something you bring into the crapper. You sit down there and you read it and you're done. And, you can go back and revisit it, right? Maybe do a second book. I saw you were on Jack Carr, so very cool. How did that happen?
So that was great. He's a really phenomenal guy. What I didn't know was that when we deployed with that unit Detachment 1 to Iraq in 2004, he was augmenting a SEAL team that was in Iraq at the same time. He was, we were with SEAL Team 1. Mm-hmm. He was East Coast guy, but he was augmenting. And later, as the mission evolved, he got brought back to work in the operations shop, and then was grabbed. A big chunk of the book talks about, I led a team of snipers in a Najaf, and didn't know until we started talking. He was, he had a SEAL team of snipers on the other side of the city. So it was at the time we had, it was the pretty significant battle, but there was a SF had some snipers, on one side of the city. The Polish Grom had their guys. I had a team, and then Jack was with a team on the other side. So, we'd experienced a lot of the same things, and we had some friends in common. He wrote his most recent books about Beirut, the attack on the Marine barracks in Beirut, and that happened right here where I live, or to the Marines that stationed at Camp Lejeune where I live. So when the book came out, him and his co-author came and did a reading and signed books, which was really, really cool at Barnes & Noble here. And, I got the chance then to run into him and give him a copy of the book, and we hit it off. And so the episode, it should be coming out in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, very cool. Fred, feel free to jump in. I know you were over there right around the same time, so feel free to jump over me anytime you need, man.
I remember the Najaf days. I was a little further east. I was in Al Qut, but I had actually it wasn't like a Recon Marines, but we had, I don't know if you remember Fallujah 2004 when the first MARDIV, they ripped up the 82nd. My ODA was in Fallujah. So we worked a lot with those guys. And what's his name? The commanding general. He was, I'm trying to blank. No, very famous general just recently. Yeah. Mad Dog. I believe he was a division commander. So his PSD, his Marines that were assigned for his protection detail, they came out to our team house and kind of rode with us a couple times. We were in a couple like hairy ambushes with those guys, and they were great men to have in that situation. So I have a lot of respect for Marines. At the unit, we had a lot of Force Recon guys. You may know a good friend of mine, Gunny Oaks, Keith Oaks.
I know. So Keith was our platoon sergeant during that time in Detachment 1. So
I remember he was part of this standing up of that. Yeah. That whole thing.
Yeah.
Very cool. Small community. Like it's funny how you know people through different so many what do they call that 7 degrees of separation or whatever.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, Kevin Bacon.
I guess I'm just curious, and pardon me, man, I haven't read your book yet. I definitely plan on picking it up, but could you kind of talk to the listeners, give us just a little, like a brief synopsis of your history, your background as a Marine, and how you started and how you got involved? I assume you went to Force Recon first, right? After being a regular Marine, pardon my verbiage. I don't know how. Just talk through it if you could.
Yeah, absolutely. I joined right out of high school. Joined the Marine Corps with the intent to become an infantryman, which I did. I had the good kind of a mistake, but the good fortune very early on to get put into a sniper platoon by accident, and was really told to sink or swim. I didn't have to go through a lot of the putting my time in and doing things because it was a clerical error. So it gave me the opportunity to prove myself very early on, go to sniper school, very early on. And then from there, I made my way to Force Recon and really spent the next 10 years of my life there. Kind of worked my way from point man to platoon sergeant there. And then I was leading the platoon as platoon sergeant in 2001. Our first stop on ship, 6-month deployment was Australia. So we were sitting in a bar when 9/11 happened. So we jumped back on the boats, sailed off to Afghanistan, and we were in Afghanistan in late 2001. And then coming back from that deployment, the Secretary of Defense, Donald Rumsfeld, had told the Marine Corps, we need more SOF, and this time you guys are going to participate. The Marine Corps had bowed out when SOCOM was created in 87. So the Marine Corps wasn't terribly happy about it, but you get SecDef tells you to do something, you do it. So the decision that they came up with was that we'll form a small unit that will get 2 years to prove itself, a proof of concept. And so I was selected to be one of the team leaders in that unit. I think, like I said, Keith Oakes was our boss. And at the conclusion of that time frame, after our deployment to Iraq, we had essentially proven, I guess, in everybody's eyes, that the validity of a Marine Special Operations component. So MARSOC was activated in 2006.
Wow.
I retired and I started, came out to here to the East Coast where MARSOC was formed to start the school. I spent my last 2 years before I retired, kind of getting our not really our assessment selection program, but our training course established. And I retired and turned around, stopped shaving, showed back up, on the following Monday as a civilian, and I've been there ever since. So I'm now the training and education branch director for the Raider Training Center.
Nice. That's very cool. Let me ask you kind of your opinion. So there's a lot of headlines, and it just seems like, and this is outside looking in, so just as strongly or seriously, just my observation, it seems like the Marine Corps as a whole, and I know they're a lot smaller branch, and the budget's smaller, right? So that affects a lot of things. That every time they have a program that's like successful, I'll give you an example. The Marine, the off-lead explosive detection dogs, what do they call them? I can't remember the acronym they used, but it was a big contract. What's that?
We had the multi-purpose canine dogs.
It wasn't multi-purpose dogs. These were single-purpose bomb dogs that were off-lead, and the Marines had a huge contract. And then after we started downsizing in, I think it was Iraq and Afghanistan, started withdrawing, they shelved that program. They're like, nope, we're done with it. They didn't they didn't keep a small version of that or a dumbed down version of it just to have that, maintain that capability. They just shelved it. And I guess that kind of segues into the main question is, so your thoughts on Scout Sniper program getting shut down. Like that was a very successful program in my opinion, and like well used and well coordinated and well executed. And then they're just going to shelf it. What do you think about it?
Well, first, I'm supposed to say this anytime anyway, but my opinions are my own, right? They don't represent SOCOM or MARSOC or anybody else. I was very shocked. Like I said, I grew up in a sniper platoon, got sent to Marine Corps Scout Sniper School, led a sniper platoon before I went to Force Recon. And I was dismayed by that. I'm on the board of the Scout Sniper Heritage Association, so I have a long, it's a big part of my identity, right? So, and snipers are a big part of the Marine Corps' identity, from, World War I when they started, especially through Vietnam, they were huge. And value as, guardian angels and things like that during the GWAT is, impossible to overestimate, I think. So it was, I mean, I'm obviously not privy to, the decision makers' reasons for a lot of things, but it does not seem like a great, great call. Hopefully they'll be brought back. There's still, we still have a sniper course, the MARSOC Special Operations Sniper Course, and Recon Marines still have their own sniper course. So there's still, all the knowledge isn't being lost, fortunately, and the Marine Corps still being fielded, the weapons and optics and things necessary. So I don't know. I think hopefully reason will prevail sometime in the near future.
Okay. There's no, I mean, and you can answer this or you don't have to answer this if you don't feel comfortable. There's no talks of jettisoning the MARSOC program, right? I hope not.
No.
Okay. No. Okay, good. That's all I had for now, Mike. If you want to.
Yeah. So with the Jack Carr thing, you went on there. It's going to come out in a couple of weeks. And where are you at right now with your writing and with training and with the rucking?
Let's see. So I've started, and when I say started, I mean just that. Like I have started on the next book. Haven't gotten that far into it, but that will focus more on really what the things I write about in that newsletter, Walking Point. I mean, really kind of taking military concepts, planning concepts, and applying them to living your best life. Right. Like I said, I've gotten a lot of opportunities out of this one. And one of the things I've started doing, like I said, is speaking with groups, speaking with, and kind of serving as a like performance coach, for some people. There's a lot of particularly civilians who are very, very successful in whatever they do, or realize that they're missing something. There's just some of the things that we kind of start learning in boot camp and learn throughout a career that when you can look at their problems that they're having, explain things to them kind of in a methodical fashion, it opens their eyes and they're like, man, yeah, now I see. Now I'm ready to go achieve another level of success. So the book will kind of talk about those things. I just before Christmas had to have my rotator cuff kind of rebuilt. So I'm on the coming back from that. So I haven't been doing as much rucking as I would like, but yeah, we're on the comeback trail at the moment.
Good, man. I remember you were talking about that before, and I'm surprised now. So you actually had to have some surgery with that. So that's pretty extreme.
Yeah, it was pretty tore up, over a life, a misspent youth of jumping out of airplanes, doing stupid shit.
So, I mean, where are you at with training? I know Fred does the same, something very similar. How do you approach it as an instructor, as a trainer, as a mentor? I mean, is there a confluence of attitudes there and leadership? I mean, how do you approach it? What's your thought? I know some kids come in there, or some young men that come in and they say, just show me. I know it all. That's their attitude. They don't say it expressly, but inwardly they probably think, hey, I know a lot. And some have very open, they want to learn. I mean, how do you approach it?
I think, I was fortunate. I was really, really fortunate that I had a ton of really good leaders coming up, and they kicked my ass when my ass needed to be kicked, which was pretty frequently. But one of the things I've realized over time, and there's still times when people's ass need to be kicked, but the one kind of analogy I use with our instructors is the obstacle course, right? Everybody's familiar with running some sort of an obstacle course. The Marine Corps obstacle course, the first obstacle is this kind of a high bar that you've got to get over. And you can, generally we just call it the college boy roll. If you've got the core strength, you just grab a hold and flip yourself over and you're off to the races. If not, you can pull yourself up, get a chicken wing over and get over. There's when guys can't do that, in the old days, the way I was brought up was your platoon sergeant, your team leader was like, hey, get over the fucking bar or I'll kick your ass over the bar. and that works. That works for some people. But that was kind of the solution, when you only have a hammer, every problem's a nail. That was kind of the solution to everything back in the day. And like I said, I feel like I turned out, pretty well in spite of it or because of it. But there's other ways to get after that, right? You can, grab the guy and explain to him. Some people need to be explained. Hey man, here's geometry. Here's how to get your ass over the bar. And then it makes sense and they can do that. Some people you need to tell them that, hey man, you're letting your team down right now because you can't do what's necessary. Some people, maybe you need to put your arm on their shoulder and say, hey man, whatever, try again. But what you can't do, is boost their ass over the bar. They've got to get over the fucking bar at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
And that's so I think I've learned to be a little more, certainly learned to be a little more thoughtful about, to recognize that there are different ways to tackle problems. I kind of have the good fortune. Now, my role now is more of a kind of a coach, a mentor, primarily to the instructors. And that they're as hard as, there's always people saying that, the young people today are weak and this and that. They're as hard and as tough and as rugged as we ever were. People coming through assessment selection that are still as not all of them, certainly. Not most of them, but the ones that make it are as as tough as we ever were. They're probably a little bit smarter in some regards. They've been raised differently. And I always say if they've been raised differently, that's not their fault. It's our fault, our generation's fault. So there's definitely, I think we've gotten a little bit smarter, or I would say my coaching, teaching methodology is evolved from, when I was an instructor as a Marine, as a MARSOC. But the goal is still the same. They've got to get, like I said, they've got to get over the obstacle under their own power. They've got to, nobody's giving them anything. They've got to meet the same standards that have always existed.
What's it like for you today in comparison to when you actually started out for mission? Has your mission changed? Has what you valued changed? As a person who has, been involved in training and in participation as well. In the war, some people, I knew a sergeant major, 19 years in, never been deployed. Like, how do you bypass that? I'm not really sure how that happens, but there are people like that. But you'd be able to partake of everything. What do you see for yourself in the future, and how do you look at the past? Was it good, bad?
No, I'm excited for it. I think one of the things I was thinking about today, I was out doing a ruck, and this guy who was very clearly older than me, or at least I think he was. A lot of times I forget, how old I am. And that's, I think, one of the privileges of working with 20, 30-year-old, Raiders is that, I think it could go one of two ways. Either it could make me feel really old, or it could, most of the time I feel like I'm still like in my prime. That's hence the shoulder surgery. I decided to have a Turkish get-up contest with a couple of 22-year-olds, which bad call. But I've always saved, going forward, I want to do what I'm doing, as long as I enjoy it, as long as I think I'm value added. And at a certain point, it'll probably get to the point where I'm not, where they need somebody, the minute you retire, you're, or the minute you get out of the military, really your relevance in the kind of the job skills starts to diminish, right? The clock's ticking. If you're a shooting instructor, unless you're staying up on it, unless you're, staying up on things, but your tactical expertise, all this thing, things change in combat all the time. Fundamentals don't, and those are the things you can always pass on. The fundamentals of inspection rehearsals, doing the little things right. So that's what I try to focus on with the Marines. And like I said, I get as much out of being around them as hopefully they do out of having me around.
Well, if you were to give a template of success, what would those be? What is your focus now? If you were to give someone everything you knew your book of knowledge and you were to give it to someone, what would it be? What would your advice to succeed in life, which is to, be focused, to pick 2 or 3 goals and, primary, secondary, tertiary? I mean, what would it be if you were to lead someone to success?
Man, that's a big question. I think the first is you got to, the analogy that I use a lot of times, and with, it's like land navigation. You got to figure out where the fuck you're going, because if you don't know that, then you know nothing, right? If you don't know that, then it doesn't matter where you are. But you got to figure out where you're going. Then you've got to, commit to doing the things necessary to get there, to hitting all the checkpoints on the way there. You've got to have, I call it the 5 C's, or clarity of purpose, clarity where you're going, commitment to get there, the courage to do that, and sometimes that's, a lot of the people I work with as a coach, a lot of them are like, hey, I want to get back in shape, or I want to, do this or do that. And, when you tell somebody that I love beer, man. I love drinking beer, love whiskey. But, if you want to get in shape, that's probably something you need to cut out. And if they're like, well, but, all my friends are going to tell me to come to the bar after work, that takes some level of courage to say, hey, man, yeah, I'm not doing that. Or more courage, or more discipline, I guess, than I have to show up at the bar and drink water while they're drinking beer. Right? That's a hard thing to do. The fourth is consistency. I mean, that's consistency is the key. And that's the thing that I learned most over my career. I'm not I'm not the smartest guy at all. Certainly not the biggest or strongest. I was usually like the tallest or the tiniest guy in my platoon. But, I knew if I showed up every day, put in the work, I, could be successful. And then the thing that I think is maybe a little curious to some people is that curiosity. I'm a big believer in, as long as you're curious about what you're capable of, what's next, then you're driven to figure it out, to find out.
How do you see yourself as a whole, as a veteran and as a warrior? And I use that term, it's such a broad term because, it could be misappropriated. People say, hey, I did a great workout, and I'm a warrior. But I'm talking about someone who was serving in the service and in combat. But you wrote a book, and it's largely the framework of, special operations, the Raiders. And I know that you have a humble approach, which is I'm just a cog in a wheel. I'm a guy. But I don't know if you're seeing that as this is pretty freaking cool. To me, it's pretty epic. I mean, you've got a book, and you've done a whole, pilot program that was successful. So how do you think you should see yourself? Because I know a lot of veterans, I mean, they've got some big egos. I mean, who doesn't? But big heads, and they think, they want to make Hollywood movies. They want to be a massive brand. But I think you've taken the other approach, which is just, hey, I did my part, and I'm just going to shut my mouth and spotlight others. And I think you've done that. But how do you see yourself, really? I mean,
man, that's another hard question.
Yeah.
I do. I think that, and I've been told too often to. I think you sound unhumble when you say that you're humble, right? Obviously, yeah. But that's been something that's kind of been thrown at me. I've heard that a lot, and I think there's some truth to it. Mm-hmm. There's also some not truth to it, right? I think I've seen over and over and over again the opposite. When a guy's like, hey, I'm going to, tell you all the awesome stuff I did, how awesome I am. And then, you find out that, well, man, some of that stuff might not have been so awesome, or maybe you didn't actually do all of those things. I definitely wanted to err on the side of caution on that. I think I'm, naturally humble because I'm still amazed that, when I read the book myself, I'm like, man, all this shit is true. I got the opportunity to, all of these amazing opportunities. And it absolutely wasn't because I didn't work my ass off. I busted my ass every fucking day. Because, it's necessary to be a good teammate, to be on a team of that level. You've got to do that. But, I felt really fortunate, like every day showing up and looking around and realizing that, hey, man, I'm surrounded by freaking, just all these phenomenal guys, and I get all these phenomenal opportunities. So, I don't know that, I'd say as a veteran, I've, there's always like the controversy of hey, don't thank me for my service, fuck you, or whatever, the angry veteran guys. And I don't get that. It's, for me, it was, I absolutely, enjoyed the opportunity to serve my country, but I enjoyed it because I had a fucking blast. I mean, we just got to do cool shit all the time. I loved almost every day that I got to show up at work. So, I mean, when people tell me, thank you for your service, one, it does make you feel a little bit uncomfortable, maybe, but I mean, usually I'm, from Kyle Carpenter, the Medal of Honor winner. The thing that he always says is you're worth it, or whatever. I mean, I believe in the greatness of our nation, and the not all of them, but most of the people in it, and that we, it's a huge privilege to be able to serve your country. And I think the part that a lot of civilians miss is that we have a lot of fun too. I mean, there's absolutely time that sucks. There's time when you lose a brother. There's when things go bad or whatever the case is. But I mean, 9 times out of 10, I mean, you get to shoot a lot, you get to blow shit up, jump out of airplanes. What's not to like?
Yeah, very cool. I remember our last podcast that we did. We were talking about imposter syndrome, and I think that's kind of the thing is, some people think, do I really belong here amongst these people? And I think that's a better approach than saying I'm the baddest freaking dude. Now, I think you have to think you're the baddest dude to accomplish things, but there's a time and a place for it, right? And have that imposter syndrome is really just saying, hey, I want to be humble. I want to do all that I can. I don't want to let these people down. And they, that's fostering brotherhood in a sense, right?
Right. Yeah. That the thing that has definitely come out of the book more than anything else is, 9 out of 10 guys that get a hold of me and say, hey, I read your book. And, they're like, I thought I was the only person that felt that way, this imposter syndrome. I didn't even know it had a name, or whatever the case is. So that was, if nothing else, letting other people recognize that, most people, even people that get to, work at a pretty high level feel that way. There's absolutely some people that don't. There's some people that maybe I don't know, they're just kind of wired differently. There's, and it's not a bad thing. I mean, some of those people are the most competent, professionals I've ever worked with. But some people are just supremely confident, 100% of the time in their ability, or at least they present that, But even a lot of the people that I thought, felt that way, came up to me after and were like, "Oh man, I thought you guys were gonna, grab me by the arm and say, hey, get the fuck out. You don't belong here." So it's interesting, and I think it can be like a lot of things. I mean, fear can paralyze you, or it can motivate you. And I think the imposter syndrome, the same thing, right? You either say, I'm not good enough, or you say, fuck you, I'm gonna prove that I deserve to be here. And that, for me anyway, it just drove me to, to push myself a little, harder every day.
Yeah, I think it's great. Napoleon said, God has told me I will conquer the world, and until then, not even a single atom will stop me. It's kind of like, boy, this little guy had some big cojones, but he did get stopped eventually, but, had that power of self-belief. Let me ask you about your morning rituals, man. Let's get into that. Are you a coffee drinker? And if so, what do you drink and how do you prepare it?
I am. Right now I've got a guy that's one of our former Intel guys that has a little kind of small roaster and makes coffee. So I've been getting his, but I was like, man, I need to check out Silencio. I use a coffee press and I make a pot in the morning, or whatever the hell it's called, the press worth in the morning. Drink it. I get up early, so I'm like 4:30 riser. Get up, make my coffee, read it, or drink it while I read a book, and then go get my workout in. I start my day. So yeah, I'm a big black coffee drinker.
Do you have like a sacred space? Now for me, that's no one bothers me. I go in my office, I do my reading, I do my thinking, and everybody knows when I'm sitting in that big leather chair, don't talk to me. So I mean, is there a place for you? Do you go out and you go hiking, or where's that space where you can collect your thoughts? Is it walking your dog, or what is it?
Yeah, for me, going out rucking or running or going to the gym, this is that time for me. So Sunday mornings, that's like my one morning. I get up, drink my coffee, and then go out to a trail that I've probably walked every Sunday for the past 5 or 6 years. Unless I've been out of town. That's like my church. I say. Otherwise, just getting out. A lot of times, just because the facilities are really good, I'll drive to work. Do my workout there, go for a run or go for a ruck there, and that's kind of preps me, for the day.
Very cool, Fred. You got any questions, man?
Yeah, I was kind of thinking, listening to you two talk, and some things popped in my head. I guess this is kind of directed for our audience. We have an audience with a lot of young men, and a lot of them are interested in military service. Could you kind of talk through the requirements to be in MARSOC? So a Marine, you already have to be a Marine, I assume, right? A kid can't go to MEPS and join off the street for a MARSOC contract, right? Can you talk through that a little bit?
Absolutely. So you've got to go to Marine Corps boot camp, become a Marine. You can come from any military occupational specialty. If you were joining the Marine Corps to go to MARSOC, I would suggest you go infantry, and potentially even reconnaissance. You can join for an opportunity to go into reconnaissance if you meet the requirements. But it's obviously very physically demanding, very mentally demanding. The expectation is that you're a really good swimmer, and by really good, you will need to be able to, swim 500 meters in like 12 minutes, fin with 2,000 meters in an hour, with a ruck and full kit, ruck, with 45 pounds dry for hours at a 15-minute pace. You're allowed to run, during that. Kind of you meet all the Marine Corps physical standards, but land navigation, just like most special operations selections, is something that we evaluate people on, because when you're land navigating, you're out by yourself, you're alone. You have to be able to follow instructions. You have to be able to have the discipline to keep up your pace. You have to have the smarts to be able to actually follow the map and compass and get where you need to go. So we really, I think, our assessment selection guys do a pretty good job of making sure that they have all the physical requirements on their website. So that's certainly a place to start. But just if you're thinking of military service, I would get very comfortable being uncomfortable, regardless of what branch it is. Certainly some more than others, but I think the greatest equalizer there is putting weight on your back and walking, because it will, get your feet into shape, which, they need to be. It builds, strong backs, hard feet, and kind of resilient attitude. If you get to the point where you're like, man, I can't go any further, then, fuck you, go a little bit further, and then go out and do it the next day and go a little bit further again. That's really the thing that separates the people who are successful from the people that, the two things I would say. One is preparation. I mean, if you want something, like I said, won't you have specificity of your goal, you have the thing that you want, then you need to commit to doing all the things necessary to be successful at it. So preparation is one, but recognizing that no matter how prepared you are, there are going to be situations that you weren't prepared for, and those are intentional, right? Because we want to see how you perform when you thought it was over and it's not. So that's where mental toughness comes in.
Right. Do you all in the selection process, do you all use land navigation as part of the medium for for selection?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool.
Yeah, it's our selection process. We had the benefit of, looking across the DoD, and we looked, very heavily, not exclusively or not totally, but very heavily down the road to Fort Bragg, and brought in some of those folks.
Were you part of that portion, the select? Because I think it was Rick Landreth that helped you guys write. Yeah, Rick was one of my command sergeant majors, and then I worked with him later at K2 Solutions when I first retired. And
we brought when we started MARSOC, we brought K2 in, and they helped develop our assessment selection. They Rick came out and assessed our close quarter battle training, and made a lot of really good recommendations on ways to improve that. So yeah, I haven't heard from him in a long time, but we had gotten pretty close for a while.
So yeah, unfortunately, few years back during COVID, he ended up getting COVID and got complication. He actually passed away a few years ago.
Oh man.
Yeah. It was pretty horrible.
He was a great, he was really instrumental in the other guys from K2 and helping us get started.
He was awesome. He was an operator's operator. That guy was an animal. I had tons of respect for him. Definitely a great role model for me. One more funny story about kind of a common person we know, Keith Oakes. So you were talking about the obstacle course, and right away that popped in my head. So we have a pretty intensive one at our OTC for where I was at, and we were in the same OTC class, Keith and I. And he's got a big history with Army Rangers. He went to Ranger school. He was an RI, and he won Best Ranger competition.
Yeah, that's the only Marine that did so.
And if you look at him, he's like a normal looking guy, really. Like, he doesn't look like some guy that lives in the gym, right? And I watched this guy. He held the record in my class for the fastest O course time. The guy was he turned 40 at the end of OTC. We're all like I was 33. I was kind of mid-range. Some of the guys were in their late 20s. Most were in our 30s, but like, this guy's almost 40. He's pushing 40, and he's smoking us in this O course. I was like, this guy's a friggin' genetic freak, man. Keith Oakes, man. I love that guy.
Yeah, he was an animal. Yeah, he started when we started Detachment 1.
Yep.
We stood up we had most of the guys. We had no equipment at that point. Nothing. We had to buy everything. So the Marine Corps wasn't giving us any of their current stuff. So we had to buy everything. So the only thing that every recon Marine had was an Alice pack. So he was like, hey, load it up, 45 pounds, dry. And every week we would step off at like 4:30. We'd do a 20-mile ruck up through the mountains in Pendleton. And you're talking about a bunch of very seasoned recon guys who are, in their mid 30s, some guys were probably, approaching 40. And, some of them were less than excited. Like, what the hell? Why do I have to do this? Why do I have to prove myself? And he just did not give a shit. And then it started to become a source of pride. Every week it was out doing the same thing. And then we would, we would work our way back down to the beach, and the last 5 miles were in soft sand. And you get down there, and then there'd be a 5-ton tire that each team had to push back, and it was a race. And you'd get back, and you'd have to do the O course a couple times. Then you'd have to carry somebody on a litter, and it just turned into. And we'd finish up by noon, and the expectation was, hey, take a shower, go back to work. Nobody's, nobody cares what you had to do to get to work. It's what you do when you get there that counts. So that definitely I credit him with some of my philosophy, certainly on the benefits of mental toughness development, especially through rucking.
Yeah. Amazing men to have worked by or work next to. Learned a lot from some of those guys. Another question I have kind of deals with it's really your opinion. So I've talked to other areas of like the SOCOM spectrum, right? Army Rangers, Green Berets. I don't think I've talked to any SEALs about this, but some Air Force, like AFSOC guys. I'll title this Gen Z. So the candidates and the guys you see coming through the pipeline now, how do you see their mentality or their attitudes versus like our generation? And you know what I'm saying? How does it compare? Because I hear some horror stories sometimes about like guys that are, trying to go through the pipeline or selection or whatever, and they come through there with some like unbelievable attitudes or expectations, I guess. So can you talk a little bit about that? Like what?
Yeah, yeah. I think, and I can obviously only speak for Marines, but I think one of the things that we have going for us is that you have to have done a couple of years in the Marine Corps before you can get the opportunity. So both, the SFAS or BUDS, you can sign up and get the opportunity very early, in your career. AVSOC, I think the same thing. So we are dealing with Marines, and Marines who've had a bad attitude have probably got that beat out of them by the time they get to us. I definitely think one of the things we looked at, there are differences, and like I said, you can't blame the Gen Z people for being Gen Z, right? You got to blame us for making them that way. But one study, and I think USASOC did a study, and the outcome of it was that there's no difference in capability, right? They have the same ability to get to the same standard. The differences come in is that they've been raised with just so much access to information. So when you put them in, a lot of times assessment and selections are very ambiguous environments, right? You're not given a whole lot of information. You're not told why. You're just told do it. And they have challenges in those environments in some cases, and in some cases just physicality. Especially if you're talking people off the street. Unless they're playing sports, and all of those things are becoming less prevalent, I think, for today's kids than they were for us. I mean, we didn't have shit else to do. You either playing football, or you were running away from the cops, or you were doing something. So you were getting some exercise. So they may need like a longer ramp to get to the same place, and they need to be like some feedback. We're, like I said, a lot of times military training in general doesn't necessarily provide you a lot of feedback. They're so accustomed to getting that we have to look and decide why. Is there harm in giving them more feedback along the way? But I mean, the Marines that I see, every graduation, walking across the stage and going out in the teams and then coming back to be instructors are, just phenomenal cats who are doing much more complex things than most, of our generation had to deal with. They're dealing with just incredibly complex problems, and operating more and more complex equipment, on a regular basis. So I don't fear for the future of our nation, as long as we have hard men that are willing and ready to do what is necessary.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And that's a great point. Like, you don't really, or at least I don't really think about this generation with that immediate access to information at their fingertips. And then you put them in that information deprivation mode. And yeah, I can only imagine what kind of effect that must have on their psyche. And then another thing you kind of hinted around, you didn't say it verbatim, but maturity, being that Marines are Marines for a couple of years or so, some time in service before they can try out. The SF, or for the Army Special Forces, we used to have that when I was going through, and then they did away with that with the 18 X-ray program, which in my opinion was a detriment. Like that, those kids don't have that maturity of being in the Army for, a couple of years, and they're E4 promotables, and they've maybe been in charge of a one or two guys in their career. So they don't have that maturity and that experience, which I think is
yeah. Well, at least you learn that it's not all about you. I think that's the thing. Just spending, a little bit of time, you realize that, hey, it's about the team accomplishing the team's mission. When you're in high school, it's very easy to, think that, I think probably thought that it's all about me. I'm going to go to boot camp and everybody's going to think I'm awesome. And you quickly realize, and then you quickly realize when you get into an actual operational unit that, nobody gives a shit about you, man. It's about doing the job.
Yeah. I think really that's about all I had. I may, random questions may pop in my head here in a little bit, Mike.
Yeah, man. So for me, I'm very curious about people's personal reflections, their philosophies. I mean, and I always am. And you're, like me, probably in your, early 50s or late 50s, and just really, what do you think that's the one thing everyone should strive to do in their lifetime? I mean, looking back on your life, you enlisted and then you served in a soft unit. You wrote a book. You are mentoring. You are working to help others to become better in the service. So looking back on that, what is that one thing? I mean, some people look back with regret and they say, I wished I had enlisted. I never did. You get that story all the time. I wish I'd done this. But for you, what do you think someone should strive for?
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I've thought about it. I don't know that there's much I would change. About the way things have happened. I think I would have focused on my family a little bit more. If I had it to do over again, there was, it's military life. It's kind of inevitable, and certainly special operations life makes it inevitable that the family carries a lot of the weight of your service. As you're gone and you're. My wife's a saint. My kids, had to put up with a lot of me not being around. So, but I couldn't have done the job that I did and done it differently. So, I don't know that there's much I would change. And I don't know, was there a second part of the question?
Well, I mean, when you look at your legacy, what do you hope to leave behind? It seems to me that you've accomplished all that you wanted to do and you don't have any regrets. And there are a lot of people with regrets. So if you were to look back at the way you had shaped your life and the way life had shaped you, do you have any regrets? Do you wonder what your legacy is going to be? Or are you very confident? Some people write books and they say, I'm very clear. I've done everything I need to do. I hit all those wickets, so. Yeah,
I don't, I certainly haven't done everything I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the curiosity I was talking about. I want to see what's next. I want to do more cool shit. I think that there's, one of the things that I talked with some veterans about recently, there's, when they get out, you get out of the military, you can kind of say, all right, that was the best days of my life and everything is downhill from here. And I think that there's a lot of guys that think that and kind of act that way, and that's to their detriment, right? If you get out at 24, 25, or you retire at 40 or 45, and you think that the best days of your life have passed you by, then man, you got a pretty long way to go, and that's kind of sad in my opinion. So I think the biggest piece of advice I would say is, you'll always be proud of your service, but I mean, that doesn't have to define you.
Yes.
You can be other things and do other cool shit. I want to be a writer who is a Marine, and a guy who's, has a successful business, helping people get better at getting better. Right? I'm far from being done. And I think as long as you have, checkpoints on the map that you're continuing to head to, then you're going to achieve a lot more. You have more to look forward to. I don't want to I don't want to wake up in the morning and not have something that I'm pushing for.
I think it's great advice. I mean, I think some people look back at the high school football team as the greatest achievement of their life, and I think that's just not the way to look. Or military service, the 4 years they did, that was the greatest achievement of their life.
Yeah, I remember my dad telling me that and probably everybody's parent, when you're in high school, they're like, man, these are the best years of your life. You better not screw it up. And I thought about that later. I'm like, man, that's really pretty fucking sad, Dad. That's, this is going to be the best year. I mean, there's no way I'm going to let this be the best years of my life. And they were fun. Believe me, I had a blast. But, like I said, I enjoyed almost every day in the Marine Corps. And I continue to enjoy almost every day now, even though I ride a desk a lot more than I would like. But just getting to contribute, to the nation's mission, to war fighters. If you can't get excited about doing that, then there's something wrong with you.
No, that's incredible. In fact, it seems to me that you're a person who thrives and does quite well in groups and in brotherhoods and tribes and that kind of thing, that descriptor. But some people, they break off and they're doing their own thing, and that's great. I'm not knocking it, because they may find, a lot of joy in being independent and building their own brand. But for you, it seems like you are very happy being part of the community. How do you, what kind of traditions do you keep? I know the Marine Corps, for both of us, there's these traditions that we love. Fred has them in the Army, but are there traditions that you hold to, like you celebrate, of course, a Marine Corps birthday, you go out there and meet other guys, or what do? You sit and drink a beer at home, or what are your traditions that keep you together virtually?
I wasn't when I was in, but and sometimes when you're in, some of the things that some of the gravity of it escapes you, but I think once you get out, I had started joining organizations, and I'm not a huge I would much rather be by myself most of the time, but just organizations that remember and celebrate kind of the legacy of so the Force Recon Association, the Marine Raider Association, I'm on their board. The Scout Sniper Heritage Association, like I said, I'm an advisor to their board. Just things that recognize our fallen. I'm big in like MARSOC and its history has lost 48 Raiders. Tomorrow we're doing a workout for 7 of them that died in an aircraft crash. Saturday was 2 that died in Iraq. Always trying to live up to the legacy of the guys who didn't get to kind of live their full life, or all those of us that survived, went to combat and came home are certainly, I think, have a responsibility, to remember those that didn't. So I think that's it. Just kind of little things, remembering the day, having a beer, calling somebody up and making sure they know that there's, still people thinking about them.
Yeah, very important. You got a lot of books behind you there, man. Is there any particular book or author that sticks out to you? Anything that you will go back, every couple of years and reread? Anything that has been impactful in your life?
Yeah, I am a big believer in Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. I read that usually once a year. It was a seal, actually, that they gave me a copy of it, my first copy of it. And I think the first time I read through it, I knew it was important, but I don't think I looked deeply enough into it. But it's kind of amazing, because I've had a copy that I probably had for 10 or 15 years, and I had to buy a new one eventually, because I would go through and, highlight different things, mark different things down. And, the idea that, so long ago, he was thinking these things as, Emperor Rome, is pretty cool. And the recognition that he was writing this out, not to publish a book, but just all reminders to himself, things he was thinking about, I think that's really cool. So that's probably the primary, one that I read a lot, but I love reading. That's the one I always go back to.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, that people have been reading him for millennia. It's incredible to think, what influence he still has. Fred, do you have any questions, man?
No, I think you hit all my questions that I came up with, but just one more testament to the Force Recon / MARSOC guy's physical prowess. Another Keith Oak story. So right after he retired, this was probably 10 years ago, around him and, do you know Todd Opalski? He was an officer. So they did the Appalachian Trail together, and they did it like, I don't know, it wasn't a record time, but it was fast. It was probably like 4 months or something like that, something crazy. I'm like, man, he is a crazy freak of nature. So
I'm not. Are you still in touch with Keith?
I think the last time I talked to him was probably a few years ago. I could probably get a hold of him. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a retired operator unit signal chat. So he's probably,
I haven't heard from him in quite a while. Opalski, I will communicate with, mostly on Facebook or whatever. He's kind of doing his thing down in South America.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool, man. So, John, have we asked you all the questions that you think we can ask? Is there anything we didn't ask that you'd love? Anything you want to spotlight? Anything you want to share? Anything that's coming up? Any book signing or event that you're going to be partaking of?
No, I think the next thing I'll be down at down a soft week in Tampa, signing books at the First Spear booth. But yeah, and I think all of the kind of info is like I said, the next big podcast coming up, Jack Farr's, and then this one, and a few more. It's been interesting. I've really enjoyed the opportunity to talk with different people. But my website kind of lists everything, jadailey.com. So there's links to where you can buy the book, all the bookstores, Amazon, and then the place to sign up for the weekly newsletters that I write if people are interested in those, and then obviously links to all the podcasts. So but yeah, no, I really enjoyed the opportunity to talk with you guys, and it's always fun.
Awesome. Well, listen, don't go anywhere. We'll chit chat offline, and we're going to get your shirt size, send you a shirt. And again, thank you for coming on. Fred, any last words?
Yeah, thanks so much, John. Appreciate you taking the time to talk to us and share your story with us. Thanks again.
Absolutely. Thanks.
All right, guys, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Check out John on johnadailey.com. You can find his book. You can find everything about him. You can find some newsletters there. And he's also doing some Substack stuff as well. So I'll put down the links in YouTube and on Rumble, and you can check him out. So God bless you all, and take care.